where they have supervision, they've got direction, they teach them to behave, they teach them to participate in things together, to get along with each other. Whereas if you didn't have this, you know, these kids maybe are left on their own. And I think that what we do with these kids is a fantastic thing for the parents. And it wasn't always as the way it is now. It wasn't always as well organized as it is now, and they're doing a good job with it. But I think that it's brought the community together in a way that this community has never been together, because you get people, all kinds of people going out there. You've got doctors who go out there, you've got dentists who go out there, you've got elderly people, you've got business people who go out there. I've even heard that when somebody in the community wants to hire corporate personnel for executive type jobs, the YMCA is a selling point to them, because they can say to them, hey, we got this great YMCA out here with all kind of activities, and today with people doing everything they can to try to stay as physically fit as they can, and we provide them with every kind of a means out here to do that. And it gets these people together in a way that they never were able to get together before, because you didn't have the facility, you didn't have the means to get people to come together. And so out of that you have conversations going back and forth that among people that never happened before, and it's a gathering place, and I think that's good for the community. It kind of binds the community together in a way that we never had before. And I think that's been the big contribution of the Y to Hanover.
Well, I suppose we both are so dedicated to our community that we see that the Y, what the Y has been doing, how it's helping, just as Paul has said, it touches everybody's life in the community. There's no doubt about that. Some more than others, because we call it the family YMCA, and it was built for the family, and it is working today along that same line. But I think we both like to see these kind of things happen in our community, because we're part of the community. I know Paul has to feel that way, or he wouldn't be doing what he's doing, and I'm just as anxious to keep the thing rolling and bring new ideas in, because it does help a community, there's no doubt about it. We can see a lot of things happening there that just never would have happened before, you know.
I think it's just interesting too how the YMCA Board of Trustees came into being. We were having a meeting one day, and with the executive director at that time, and I don't recall which one it was, and he said, you know, we need to have a board of trustees, and we don't have one. We didn't set one up initially. We just had a board of directors and an executive director. And the board of trustees didn't come into being until quite a while later. That's not the way it should have worked. We should have started with one in the beginning, but we didn't, because, you know, we were new to this, and I guess we were all busy with our jobs and trying to raise money for the Y and all that kind of stuff without thinking about all the administrative type things that had to be in place. So he said, to Alan, the executive director at that time, said to Alan Wareheim and myself, we need to get set up a board of trustees. And Alan said, fine, Paul, you're the president. And that's how I became president. I mean, he elected me, and I've been the president ever since. And then it was, and so Alan was on the board of trustees, and myself, and I said, well, we got to get Ken Leister on there. And I think, and then Dr. Devan, we got Dr. Devan to serve on the board of trustees. And then since Donald B. Smith had always been a good contributor to the Y and had helped us with a lot of the construction we had, we got him on the board.
Laverne Lease came on later, right? There was somebody between, before Laverne came on.
I think Tom Bross came on next, and
That's about right, yeah.
and then Laverne Lease. Oh, and Mike Rice is on our board of
That's
trustees.
right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, and now Dan Weber.
Mm-hmm.
And also they started with David Benfield coming to the board meetings as
Right.
as a member. So, and that's the way it should be. The president of the YMCA board is always considered to be a member of the YMCA board of trustees. And we're always thinking about people to add to the board of trustees. I've always looked at it as a very responsible undertaking, and the YMCA is one of the proudest things that I've felt that I've been associated with in my life, and I've done a lot of things in my lifetime. And I've been in business for over 50 years and have done just about everything that anybody could do. But the YMCA is, without doubt, one of the proudest things that I have done, and I feel very, very fortunate to have had the opportunity to be able to be associated with the Y and with people like Ken Leister and others along the way, like Alan Wareheim and people that I've been associated with over the years who have given their time and their energy and their money to support the YMCA because they believed in it. And when I see what has been accomplished, you just can't help but be proud of what's there and what's been done through the efforts of all these people that worked on it.
bought the Nautilus and put it up there. You remember that, Paul?
Mm-hmm. When we started with the first location we had downtown, you could play pool on the pool tables, and we fixed up the bowling alleys, and you could bowl there. And I can't recall what other things that we had, maybe badminton, or not badminton, but ping pong. I think that they had some ping pong tables set up there. And that's all I can remember about the activities that we had there.
Everything that we could give somebody some service on, but at least get some money out of them as dues and so forth, that's what we tried to do. And of course, we still were hitting the brick wall. We just didn't have money. And I can remember so vividly, one evening we were sitting at the board meeting, and in the meantime, we had gotten a new director. John Wood left us, and we had to get somebody, and we got Dave Cotton.
David Cox, yeah.
Dave came, and he was a director that believed and was trained in camping. And they had a good camping program going. How Y'all Campers, I remember, was one of the groups, but it was a family affair. Every weekend, the Y was empty because they'd be outdoors, and they'd be on camping trips. But we got along pretty well, but we still hit this snag of not having any money. So we were sitting at a board meeting one evening, and I was getting so tired of hearing about this fact we don't have any money. And I said, well, gentlemen, there weren't any ladies there then yet. And I said, gentlemen, I think there's one thing you were missing. We have never asked the community whether they want a YMCA, and we should ask them. And by asking them, I'm saying that we develop a drive, a membership drive, to where they would pay for it. And I really would like to make a motion that we do this, and if the drive is not successful, we simply pay Dave Cotton what we owe him and pay the other monies that we owe people and close the doors. We're not getting any place, and we don't know where the community even wants it. Well, they took that, and at that very evening, I was sitting there on the back of a piece of paper figuring out what we could get from a lot of our supporters and new supporters. And Paul was sitting beside me, and he leaned over, he said, Ken, how much do you have there? As near as I can tell, I came up with something like $35,000. And I think I'm right on that, but I'm not positive. But anyway, they bought the idea. We went out and had a very successful drive, went over the top. We could keep Dave, and we got rolling. And then the other thing I think that was so helpful to us was Dave said to us one day, you know, there's an organization in York that we ought to either become part of or ask them to come here and tell us about it and have one ourselves. And it was the ARP. And we had never heard of the ARP organization before. So my wife and another lady that was helping up at the Y at that time, a volunteer, and some other people went along with Dave down to York to one of the ARP meetings. And they came back and they said, that's what we need. So that's how the Y got involved with the ARP organization. And I don't have to say anything. The ARP got so big that the Y couldn't even handle anything, so they went off on their own. But they also were very appreciative of the Y's activities, and they lended a lot of help. And also, it was a place for to get membership. But anyway, Dave did a real good job of getting that organization into the Y and out on their own, really, because, as I said, it was too large. We couldn't even handle it. But it was a means of money. That was the big thing that was important then. And from that drive and from the little bit of help that ARP helped on, it really got going.
And thinking about what Ken was saying about raising the money, I remember when we were trying to raise money initially for the swimming pool, that young Jack Shore and I got together and decided to take a street in Hanover and hit every door on that street and see how much money we could raise. And we started out early in the morning, and we decided on Lee Street. And we hit every house on Lee Street and told them our story about how we needed this money to build this swimming pool. And we hit every house on Lee Street, and at the end of the day, we hadn't received a nickel. And I went home about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was really discouraged because I thought, we spent the whole day, we hit every house on Lee Street, and nobody would give us anything. And my phone rang shortly after I got home, and it was my friend Paul Wooster, who used to run Fisher's store on Carlisle Street. And he said, I heard that you were out trying to raise money for the Y. I said, yes. And he said, how much did you get? I said, nothing. And he said, well, so that this wasn't a total failure for you, I'm going to send you a check. And he sent us a check for $25. And that's the first money I remember raising. And it's a long way from there to where we are today. And back in the beginning, we didn't have any land. We not only didn't have much of a home, we had some temporary quarters on Carlisle Street, but we needed a place where eventually we could see a building going up and have a place where we could have something for the members, if we could get members, and where we could build someday a swimming pool, and where we could build someday a gymnasium and other things. And we were very fortunate to have somebody like Mike Rice's grandfather, who owned Utz Potato Chip Company at that time, they call it. And he was very community-minded, and he donated to us the land that the Y, the present Y, is now located on. And I think there was something like 5 or 6 acres there. And it's right along George Street. So now we got some land. And then we could start thinking about raising money to build a building. And I remember being chairman of, I think, the first major fundraiser that we had, and I went to all the corporate people that I knew, and at that time, Hanover Shoe was a strong supporter of the Y because I worked there. Hanover Shoe Farms was a strong supporter of the Y because I worked there. And all the executives that worked there, I tapped all of them. Alan Wareheim was very instrumental in helping to raise money from not only his company, Hanover Brands, and the what was then the Farmers Bank, but also then he talked to other corporate friends that he had in the community, and Ken Leister was very instrumental in raising a lot of money. And I think back in the beginning, the three major fundraisers were Ken Leister and Alan Wareheim and myself. And we worked on every major capital fund drive that the Y had.
What changes have you seen in the community's needs and support for Y over the years?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's been a tremendous change in the support for the Y and the interest in the Y. When we first started to talk about the YMCA in 1968, there wasn't a whole lot of interest within the community outside of the initial group of people like us who were interested in it and trying to promote the idea. But now, I think that the YMCA has become a focal point for the whole community. I ride by there every time I have to go out of town. I make sure I get down George Street and look at the number of automobiles that are there. And it's just incredible to me to see where we have come from and where we are today. And it's not just one age group of people. You've got young children out there, you've got teenagers, you've got young adults, you've got elderly people. We have something there for everybody in this community, and it's a family-oriented YMCA. And I can remember that Ken pushed that very hard in the formative stages of the Y, that it should be a family-oriented YMCA. It shouldn't appeal to any one specific group of people, but you should try to get the whole family involved. And that's been the theme of the Hanover area family YMCA throughout, and I think it's paid off. I think it was the right way to go. And it wasn't always smooth sailing. It was difficult in the beginning trying to raise money. Today we've got 11,000 members here. We're taking care of maybe 600 children every day out there. We've got a branch up in Littlestown now and exploring the possibility of having other branches. This thing has grown far beyond anything that I ever expected in the beginning.
What do you think is the most important thing that the Y has done for the greater Hanover area?
Well, I think it's helped to pull people together. I think it's helped to get people to support something that is good for the community. You know, all too often people think of things in their own little parochial way, that they're just thinking about what's good for them and not what's good for everybody. And of course, that's not just here in Hanover. That's worldwide. It's everywhere. But when you have something like the YMCA and the YWCA that people believe in because they see the good that it does. I mean, you've got children who now have a place to go where the parents work, or maybe a single parent has to work, and what do they do if they don't have a place to put their child? But here, they've got a place to go with that child where they have supervision, they've got direction, they teach them to behave, they teach them to participate in things together, to get along with each other. Whereas if you didn't have this, these kids maybe are left on their own. And I think that what we do with these kids is a fantastic thing for the parents. And it wasn't always as the way it is now. It wasn't always as well organized as it is now, and they're doing a good job with it. But I think that it's brought the community together in a way that this community has never been together, because you get people, all kinds of people going out there. You've got doctors who go out there, you've got dentists who go out there, you've got elderly people, you've got business people who go out there. I've even heard that when somebody in the community wants to hire corporate personnel for executive type jobs, the YMCA is a selling point to them, because they can say to them, hey, we got this great YMCA out here with all kind of activities, and today with people doing everything they can to try to stay as physically fit as they can, and we provide them with every kind of a means out here to do that. And it gets these people together in a way that they never were able to get together before, because you didn't have the facility, you didn't have the means to get people to come together. And so out of that you have conversations going back and forth among people that never happened before, and it's a gathering place, and I think that's good for the community. It kind of binds the community together in a way that we never had before. And I think that's been a big contribution of the Y to Hanover.
Mr. Leister, both you and Mr. Spears have been on the Board of Trustees for many years, and you've been with this from the beginning. Why have you stayed?
Well, I suppose we both are so dedicated to our community